So today's mom session is going to be the mother of all mom sessions, which is a very special edition, and we are significantly improving what normally happens in a mom session. Now let me start with what normally happens in a mom session. I believe the screen is visible and I'm audible. Okay, this is the regular mom session, which we always have been doing. So here we have 5 components. We start the day with previous day revision, which is a logical continuation of whatever has happened yesterday. We always talk about continuous consistency. Now, continuous momentum. It's not a separate day. Everything is aligned. Okay, this is the first. Box breathing technique is one thing which will quickly alter the thought process. As I said multiple times, it is easy to alter your thoughts with your breathing than thinking. Technique followed by guided meditation. Now, when I say this, we are trying to alter the perception of reality. Reality is very different in perception of reality. Most of the students, majority of the time, they perceive reality in a very pessimistic sense. Now, which is not true. Even if I say you'll definitely clear for sure, it is also not true. So we're slightly altering reality and perceiving it in a particular way, which is suitable for us to prepare better. This is as simple as that. So we're changing the perception here. Stress relief exercise. Now, probably we might need it this month once you consistently start hitting 12 plus hours in a single day with good level of cognitive load. You definitely will feel some level of, I would say, fatigue more than stress. So by investing 3 to 5 minutes, especially at your shoulder and neck region, you'll be able to remove all of that. So that is about stress relief exercises, and there are more to the story about it. And current day skimming is a very, very, very powerful technique which will significantly accelerate your preparation process. Okay, so these are the set of things which are happening, and thanks to you guys, we're able to internalize this in the last 3 weeks. Now I'm talking about the next 4 weeks, and let's call it a 1 month marathon. Okay, we are going ahead with a 1 month marathon, which is 4 weeks. Now, by adding one additional week, we are trying to get an output of more than 50%. When I say that, we are adding one third extra time. By adding one third extra time, I'm trying to get 50% more outcome. Let's say 3 weeks is equal to 100. With fourth week, I'm making it 150. 3 weeks is equal to 100. 4 weeks is equal to 150. So 33% extra time, but 50% more outcome. This is exactly what we are planning to achieve for this week. How are we going to do it? The first principle, this is something which I always used, but I never directly explain about to the students. But this time, since we're doing something which we're not done before, I believe it is important for you to understand some of the underlying principles which we normally don't share. So first thing is inverse thinking. What is inverse thinking? This is what it is. Now, what is the right path? Let's study, let's revise, let's write the exam. This is a regular path. Now, what is the other way, or what is a, it's something like reverse engineering. Now, what is the right way to engineer something? You keep building something. What is reverse engineering? Like these Chinese guys do. Okay, I need to build this phone. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Let me understand what is the component, and let's re-engineer everything. Now we follow reverse engineering in terms of our approach to exams. Now, what is the kind of the question paper which is getting set? How do the examiner evaluate your paper? And with that process only, we'll come back. So reverse engineering is anyways there. Now, inverse thinking is slightly different than reverse engineering. Here, it talks about a, I would say, perception shift. Now, when you talk about right path, we kind of tend to get carried away because there are multiple right paths according to different people. But when I talk about what's the wrong path to avoid, you'll definitely understand certain things which which might cause you to fail. For example, what's the wrong path to avoid? In our case, now what's the right path? Now, when you talk about what's the right path, I need some responses from you in terms of what do you think is the right path? What is the right path to pass? Now, what's the wrong path to avoid failure? We're talking about two things: right path to pass and wrong path to avoid failure. Okay, let's think about 3 things here and 3 things here. Can someone tell me what are the 3 things are in the right path to clear the exam? quickly, you can unmute yourself or jot down your points in the chat box. What do you think is the right path to pass in 3 steps? If you're talking about passing in May 2024, what do you think is the right path? 3 steps. I want a response from all of you guys. What do you think is the right path? Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Respond fast.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, right path is syllabus completion, sir.
Okay. One is you're talking about, when you're talking about right path, one is let's complete the syllabus. Syllabus completion. Okay.
Consecutive revision.
Syllabus completion. Consecutive revision.
Uh, perfect presentation.
Okay. Exam presentation. We're talking about exam presentation. Perfect. These are 3 steps. If it happens, you'll pass. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. That's a good response. Now, can someone tell me what's the wrong path to avoid? Like, what are the 3 things which should be avoided so that we can avoid failure? Prasanna, you tell me, since you mentioned it, let's see. Now, 3 things which should definitely be avoided.
So breaking the chain of preparation.
Breaking the chain of, what do you mean by that? Simplify it further.
Sir, going out of preparation, like taking a day off or
Okay, let's start
getting
with
in.
this. Taking a day off. Okay. In the next couple of months, not even a single day off. Taking a day off. Okay, right. Next.
Second one is following irregular materials, sir. Like keep on switching on materials.
Changing materials.
Source of materials.
Okay. Changing learning sources. Changing sources of learning. Yes. Next.
Not having writing practice or something. Not getting into writing practice. Keep on learning.
Okay. Not writing or practicing enough. Okay. Right. Okay. This is interesting. When you talk about right and wrong, we kind of look at them as opposites, right? If you look at it, Prasanna has shared 3 things: syllabus completion, consecutive revision, exam presentation. Now, ideally, when you talk about the wrong path, it should be, first point should be not completing syllabus, not doing revision, not presenting properly in the exam. Ideally, like if you look at it, this should be the ones. It's just a negation. Right and wrong is a negation. What should, when you say that these 3 things will take you there, will you say that it's a very simple and logical step? But that's the reason why I wanted the same person to answer this. Now, when you change the person, it might be a different thing. Now, can someone explain me why isn't it inverted? Why isn't it the negation? Why did we talk about something really, really different, extremely different, right? We're talking about taking a day off. Like it's nowhere in the picture here. Or changing source of learning, it's nowhere in the picture here. So, Prasanna, I'll get back to you. I want someone else to answer this. Why didn't this happen? Why is it not completing syllabus, not revising, not exam practice? Now, you understand this? The game is sorted. Yes, this is an important question. I'm expecting some good responses, mature responses. This is very, very important. Now, for you to think in an inverse manner, you have to think at least now in a regular manner. Now, it's a regular question. I'm not expecting you to think in an inverse manner. Regular question. Why isn't it a negation of it? How can we explain this? Like when we talk about the right path, why did it go in that tangent? And when you're talking about this, why is it in a different tangent? Answer. Okay, enough thinking. Start answering. I think I should make mom also offline. Vamshi, you there?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Can you help me understand why is it not the exact opposite? Why did he give two different responses when you're talking about right path and wrong?
Well, actually, I feel the why we are not feeling it is that the different thing as what is wrong path is because firstly we are not actually perceiving that whatever is the right path. If we don't do the right path, that's what we need to avoid. It's like in our brain we are not thinking that though we. It's like we are thinking that even though we have not completed our syllabus, we can still pass. That's how we are perceiving. That's why
Great.
we are not taking that not completing the syllabus is not the wrong path.
Mm.
Because
Mm.
of which, in an overall sense, we are still in the wrong path.
Yes. That's a great response, Vamshi. Good. Very good. That's a good response. Yes. Santosh, you want to answer? You want to add something?
So I have no other points as of now
Hmm.
because my preparation is yet to be streamlined.
No, understand the question. No, Santosh, understand the context. It's very important. Now when you are on and off, you miss the context. I simply said it has nothing to do with the preparation. You understood the first question, what is the right path? He said three things. Now, wrong
Yeah.
path should be the inverse of it. Now, Vamsi said, in our mind, we don't think not completing the syllabus might lead to failure. So that's a very, very insightful point. Now, I wanted to look at it. Why is it? Why is the reason you he did not give the inverse of these responses? Now, it has got nothing to do with your preparation. It just has something to do with your thinking. If you're able to think in this lines, answer. Otherwise, let's give it a skip. It's fine.
No, I'm not getting any points.
That's okay. That's totally fine. Now let me move to guys. I want two, three people to answer this. Alvin,
Good morning, sir.
morning.
So, what's the right part? We can do either of the two, and still we can try to achieve the past thing. But what's the wrong path to avoid? I guess like if we follow any one of the thing, it may lead us to failure.
Oh, that's good. That is one part. But why are we giving separate responses for the right path and wrong path? It should be just the opposite of it, right? Now, see, when we believe, let's say, taking a day off, if that is the case, what the right path? Don't take a day off, or don't change learning sources, or stick to one single learning source, or write every day. This should have been the right path. I'm saying it need not be the negation of what's right. It should at least be the negation of what's wrong, right? So why isn't so? Now what you said is totally true because even in right path, if you do one or two things, still you might think that you are clear. When you talk about the wrong path to avoid, it should be the direct negation of it, right?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, fair enough. Akasha, can you unmute and explain? I didn't get what you tried to say.
What I mean is, first of all, we'll not identify the right path itself.
Oh, nice. That's a good one. Yeah, true. Yeah. Do you think it's easy to identify the wrong path and the right path, right? Is it what you meant?
Sorry?
Do you mean it's easy to identify the wrong path as compared to the right path?
Correct. To rectify the wrong path, will not identify the right path first.
Okay, fair enough. Good. That's a good point to ponder about. Yes, right. So rest of you, Anurag, Hari, Kavya, Prasad, Mani, Mitra, Prasanna, Radha, Twinkle, any of you want to add anything in this perspective? Why are we talking about two different things when it comes to the right path and wrong path? Think. Just unmute yourselves and speak. All right, I guess morning is yet to strike you, still in that deep slumber mode. Oh, just find the ads and reasons, but then to find who's in that. Fair enough. Vamshi got your point. Yes. Okay. So now what are we trying to achieve? Now, this is a principle which we follow at Big Four. Like some of you might have had Big Four experience when you talk about it. We start the audit with what could go wrong. We identify the wrong path. What could go wrong? Now, the entire component of controls, when you talk about audit, when you completely talk about internal controls and risk assessment, the whole of audit is all about internal controls and risk assessment. The heart of audit is internal control and risk assessment. Now, when I talk about internal controls and risk assessment, we always start with building controls based on what could go wrong. In my previous session, I said we are moving from conversations to controls. Now, until now, every single student who has cleared, it's mostly because of a set of conversations. We don't offer coaching. We don't offer test series in the traditional way people think. We're not here. But how are we able to achieve what we are able to achieve? Through a series of contextual conversations. You talk, you slightly alter. You talk, you slightly alter. Series of conversations. Right conversations at the right time. That's it. Now we are moving from this conversations to control. Why? One, we want to increase the certainty. Two, we want to work on scalability. I can't keep sitting and talk to each and every single person that like the way yesterday it took me 5 hours, the other day before. 5 hours just to talk to 10 people. Now this is not practical. It has to be scalable. Now we are setting controls. Now controls about what? We are identifying what's the wrong path to avoid to fail in CA exams. What is the wrong path to avoid to fail in CA exams? Now, that is exactly what originally worked for me. When I started my journey, I just spoke to 100 plus CAs. Two questions. How did you clear? Why did you fail? It's the other way around. Normally, when you ask questions, why did you clear and how did you fail? Now, for me, why did you fail? Why did you fail? Because when I ask why, the response is always precise. How is a vague response? How you add everything? Why is a very good and precise response? Now, I built wrong paths. Okay, this is the wrong path. Like one of the most important thing is multiple sources of learning. I started this coaching. I did not like the faculty. Switched. Tried this decision making changes. Like it's clearly visible that you're never going to get there. The path itself indicates. Path is a beautiful word. Path indicates when you're getting and where you're getting. So my preparation is largely based on what's the wrong path. And having said that, when we built it, this is not easy for someone to directly understand. Inverse thinking is a very complex process. Inverse thinking is hard. So until now, I wasn't, I wasn't actively sharing it. But right now, when I say that let's do what hasn't been done, I wanted to add one more layer of trust on my students. Like, let me open up my thought process. Let me help them experience what I normally think through. So that way, some of you might catch up, some of you might understand at a later point of time. Even if you don't, at least you know the right path to work. Right path, anyways, we're working upon. Now we're telling you the wrong path. Okay. So this month, we're very clear about how are we going to avoid the wrong path. We are defining the wrong path. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We are defining the wrong path and we are making sure we're avoiding the wrong path. Now, how are we making sure? That's the reason when I said come offline. Now we are building in controls. As I said, what could go wrong, and for what could go wrong, we're building a control. Now that control, I can't go all across India and build control. That I can build at least those controls in Hyderabad. Now this is what it is. So we're defining what could go wrong. We already defined what could go wrong, and certain controls are done, so that this can't go wrong. Now, as long as we avoid the right path, the possibility of as long as we avoid the wrong path, the possibility of the path in which we are going right is very high, because it's hard to define what's the right. It's seriously hard to define what one of you said. It's hard to define what's the right path. So first of all, to begin with, for starters, we're avoiding the wrong path. Okay, this is exactly where we are starting. Now, if this concept is clear, please type clear. Please type clear, because if you want me to explain, I'll do that. Or otherwise, if it's reasonably clear, please type clear. I want all of response from all of you. At least I'll know that you're not sleeping. Okay, now since we're talking about the wrong path, I'll tell you one more thing. In a session, let's say in any session, whether you're sitting online or offline, there is a tendency for some of you where, it feels like it's a basic thing to respond. It's a primitive thing to say yes, say no. A lot of people will be like silent observers. Now we call it the cool fool syndrome. Now, what is the cool fool syndrome? You think you are cool, but you're acting like a fool. Now, what do I mean by that? When you're trying to learn something, you'll have to constantly come out of that static zone. What is static zone? Let's say you're sitting like this, you're listening, whether it's a movie or whether it's a book or whether it's a conversation, you're just sitting like this and you're not reacting, when you're not responding, when you're not acting upon something which is given as a context or a trigger, the possibility of you picking up the important cues will dilute. I understand, see, because I'm the one who always talk about attention. I'm the one who talk about distraction. But in a online learning environment, especially, it's important for you to have a back and forth conversation continuously. When I ask you to type yes, when I ask you to type clear, it's not for me, it's for you. Because when you do that, you're thinking, is it clear for you? Is it clear for you? If not, if it's not clear, you have to understand why it is not clear. So when you type it, it's not random. People don't type it randomly. It looks like it's a random, simple response. So I always prefer all of you to participate. Now, that is the reason why I generally ask you to, switch your camera and all of that. So from here onwards, when you're learning something, two things. Do you think it is important or not? It's not important. That's a different part. Now, it takes a few years for you to realize it is important, or otherwise you'll never understand. That's totally fine. Now, if you realize that it is actually important, behave and act in a way that it is important. Don't just mentally think it is important and don't do anything about it. So I want all the sessions to be far more participative. At some point of time, we used to do it at the end of the day. That daily active dose is where we used to share this. But then we realized you sleep and then something gets missed out. When I'm sharing it at the beginning of the day, you have the whole day to process it. You have the whole day to process this. You have the whole day to apply. Let's say when I talk about current day skimming, the moment I say, you kind of work upon that on the same day, right? So this is exactly why I'm asking you to be far more responsive. What's the wrong point to avoid? Don't act like dead zombies in sessions. Don't act like dead zombies. That's something which I wanted to avoid. But again, in terms of the inverse thinking, right path and wrong path, I hope this is clear for all of you. I hope this is clear for all of you. So with this context, I'm kind of moving on. This is the learning process. Okay, this is a bit, it's called cognitive psychology and a bit of education psychology. What is this? It talks about two things: teaching methods and learning process. Teaching methods and learning process. The whole of education psychology is all about teaching method and learning process. Now, what is teaching method and learning process? There are two ways with which something can become very efficient. If something is taught at this level, the understanding will be at this level. Now, if the teaching method is like this, the understanding level raises fundamentally. So one is because of the improvement in teaching level, the understanding naturally raises. That's one. Second, for the same teaching level, the understanding can directly raise because of qualitative learning process. So that way, we're working on both. When you talk about marathon in March, the March marathon, let's call it March past failure. So when we're talking about this, we are significantly increasing the efficiency of both the factors. How it is being taught, why it is being taught, and at what point of time it is being taught, versus how it is being perceived, how it is being used, how it is being applied. So we're working on both the levels. So when I talk about learning process, fundamentally, the process is like a lecture like this. It could be a two-way conversation. It could be the questioning. It could be the discussion. It could be through reading a set of documents, like the one last written document, which you have in your app. You can go and check the whole document. We have shared the entire document for you to understand the framework. And these are all various ways of learning. Now, outcomes in terms of accumulation of skills, knowledge, and all of that, in terms of emotion, like good experience, good satisfaction, sometimes goosebumps, sometimes, transition to different emotions. These are all outcomes. And far more practical outcomes could be cracking exams, clearing interviews, or getting a job, or showing materialistic success, all of this. there is a lot of outcomes which are infinite. Now, in terms of factors, I don't like the term motivation because it's misused, but otherwise, motivation is an important term for someone. Motivation is like the purpose, the drive. Why are you learning what you're learning? Why are you learning what you're learning? And what is the activity which you're talking about? And how are you understanding and how the feedback mechanism works? And channel, like what exactly is the source and channel of learning? And in terms of context, is very important. Context. Let's say I'm talking about the same thing to all of you at the same point of time, but all of us are sure that you're learning it very differently. I'm saying the same sentence, including last sentence. Don't you think you're understanding it differently? Yes or no? Can I get a quick response? Now I'm talking about the same sentence. Don't you think you're understanding it differently? Different students understand it differently. The same thing. Although the faculty teaches the same, although the book is the same, isn't the understanding different? Now, this is exactly what we're working on at the first level. And when you talk about inverse thinking, what is the path which has to be avoided? Now, when you think about it, a lot of you are not capturing information the way it is, whether it's through learning or listening. Okay. Now, how do you learn? Whether it's through reading or listening. Either you read it from a book or you listen to someone like me or your faculty. Reading or listening are not happening the way they should happen. That is the reason why we are altering it, we are fixing it. The way you read, the way you learn, we are changing it. The way you read, the way you learn, we're changing it so that there is less dilution in information capture. Like when I'm giving you something, you'll be able to retain 70-80% at the source level, right? Otherwise, what will happen? The source level itself will only capture 50%, 40%. So this is why contextualization is very important. And in terms of technology, you talk about multiple tools and techniques. When I say technology, techniques are also part of technology. It's not just what you see on the screen or what you see in the system. The way you learn something is also technology, your internal technology, right? This is exactly how the factors influence the outcome during a particular process. Now we are heavily focusing on the process. We are working on the factors so that the outcomes are changed. This is about this. In terms of explaining it in a simpler manner, so the context, okay, the context in an offline context. Now I think this will be able to help you understand. This is the context where you are. Earlier, I thought for a long period of time, Zoom is the context. You're already living in Him Life School. In terms of your thought architecture, you're all living in the Him Life School mental space. That is what I thought. But subsequently, thanks to some students, I have realized students can't live in a mental space. All these factors affect their physical space, and physical space has a more control than mental space. Like we thought by spending 1 hour online, they'll be able to fight 10 hours. No, even if you spend 10 hours online, 1 hour of bullshit activity offline is collapsing everything. So this context, especially family, other peers, conversations, community, television to a matter, and your own internal thoughts, all of this context, which is normally a school, is something which is going to change this month. Now we are talking about, we are removing the regular context which you have. We are creating a new context which is custom built. We built a context for you, and I'm saying, come and stay in this context. Now, what is this context? There's a flat in my home, Navadip are staying at Panchaguta. So this is the context. Now here, you don't have international conditions, you don't have family, you don't have television, you don't community, you have peer group, you have, but a different quality, movie, religion, state. You don't have to worry about anything. All you have is a study space, zero distraction zone. Study space, zero distraction zone in the lap of nature. Now, first of all, this is sorted. Now, this is an insane intervention. I would say this itself will increase, just because of changing the context, that itself will increase the probability of clearing by 20-30%, only by changing the context. No matter how much you believe that you're staying in a good context, this is custom built, curated context. Understand? You have all the gods in your home, you build it like a temple, but temple is different. Any temple is different. I'm not talking about going to Tirupati or somewhere. Any temple is different from a home, because home is not built for worship. Home has all biological needs. Home, there are a lot of things which happen, right? Food creation, recreation, procreation, everything happens at home. And God, the religious space or the space to worship is only so much. It's not even 5% of your home space. Tell me who's a room bigger than your master bedroom. Now, when I talk about it, please understand. You should be matured enough to understand. I have a bench, I have a table. No. When you talk about library, it only has books. When you talk about temple, it only has that aura of worship. That is what I'm talking about. Always go and invest in places which has a singular objective. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And whenever in life, when you have to achieve something, always go to space which has only one objective. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right? So this is the context which you're talking about. So to begin with, the context has to be removed. The context is removed. The easiest way to remove it is creating a separate context with this defined objective. That is what we have created. That is the reason why we are so bullish in content. If you listen to me, for the last 1 week, I've been ultra confident about what is going to happen because this is a game-changing thing. Done. Next, in terms of the process, as I said, input, output, and process. Now, input, it has a lot to do with the teacher and student, right? Now, teacher characteristics, what I experienced in the last 3 to 4 months, again, thanks to some students, it is game changing and life changing. The way I rebuilt myself is amazing. Normally, it takes 3 to 4 years to rebuild myself. This time, it just happened in 3 to 4 months. Again, multiple factors came into the picture. So I was able to see this difference significantly, both at the cognition level and application level. So this is exactly how this is also reflecting in my conviction. Otherwise, with only 30 days to go, with a lot of gaps in the preparation, how can I confidently say, okay, calm down, not able to clear over there, calm down, I'll solve everything in 30 days. For me to say this in a public context with this kind of complexity, imagine the level of confidence I have in it. Again, it's not because of my confidence, it is driven through competence, it is driven through conviction. Now, all of this, as far as I understand, now I'm in my one of the best zones of life. So whatever is going to come from this perspective is magical. So this is sorted. Now, student characteristics, whatever characteristics we are having, we are completely breaking it. We are completely breaking your actual characteristics and we are rebuilding it. Now, how? Super student. Now we have a particular definition of a super student. Yesterday I told you some principles, I told you some commandments, right? So that it doesn't matter who you are, we are building our students the way they should be. Again, understand this. It's not about who you are. We focus on whom you should be, right? So this is no longer relevant. I am emotional, I have a sensitive heart, I have a weak heart, whatever bullshit you talk about, that is no longer relevant. You want to become a chartered accountant, right? Chartered accountant is a well-defined level. It's a well-defined reference group. You want to get into ICI membership. You want to get a membership from this institute, right? It is well-defined. Get X, get Y, get Z, and then you become a CA. Similarly, to become a super student, get X, get Y, get Z. Only then you'll become a super student. Once you become a super student, the possibility of you clearing CA will move from 10% to 90% outright, because it's hard to become a super student. So that way, both teacher characteristics, when I say teacher characteristics, it's him, human intelligence master. When we have time, I'll explain that. That will be a very interesting concept. That's the best ever work of my life. So that is defined. It's not about me. Student is not about you. Him is a teacher. Super student is a student. So that way, input characteristics are well defined. We have done it. Now, classroom processor. Now, when I talk about processor, this is characteristics. Characteristics is how you think. Classroom is how you behave. When I say behave, what you do, application, what you do on a daily basis. Now, this is one more problem. First problem, context in online. The second problem is the process. Now, how you behave at your home based on what I say. I'll tell you the difference. Today, I told you the same session. Today, I told you the same thing for all of you. Offline, online, any line. This is done. But the next 10 hours in offline, how I behave, how you behave is completely under control. And it is very linear to the input. The input and processes are in the linearity. In an online ecosystem, this is where there is a significant lapse. You listen to me for 1 hour, something happens, flip. Something happens, flip, 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 flip. The graph, which is supposed to go like this, it collapses. Done. Wasted. All the superhuman or intellectual effort which goes in building a day gets wasted just like that. And then we get judged for our outcome or for our process, whatever, for a mistake which is happening at the ecosystem at the student's home or wherever he's sitting. So we initially it was fine. Initially we take responsibility for everything. Right now we feel and we can take responsibility only of things which are under our control. So no matter how good student you are, when you're not sitting in the context of this, we don't know. Might be doing well, that's not the point, but we don't know because we don't have control. We don't see what is happening. We cannot perceive what is happening. That is the reason why the classroom process is where we did the second intervention. In terms of the input, yes, online, offline, it's more or less fine. Input, of course, even in offline, there's a better two-way communication, but still, in terms of the delta, highest delta is the context and followed by the classroom process. But because of changing the context, because of changing the classroom process, we're able to achieve the desired outcome. What is the desired outcome? It's not improvement. Because when I spoke to you the other day, most of your outcome is I feel better. I think I have improved something. No, that is not the desired outcome. Outcome is if you have to get 150, where are you? Outcome is numbers, not something else. Whenever you talk about it, talk in numbers. What cannot be measured cannot be improved. If you ask me in a philosophical context, I'm an extremely different person altogether. I have a different personality when I talk about philosophy. Now, philosophy, spirituality, that's a different layer altogether. When I talk about it, there is no spiritual way to clear any exam directly. You have the background, it helps you to think in a certain way, but you need to have a practical dimension to crack a practical exam like CA. Okay, so in terms of output, we definitely are talking about certain numbers. Okay, so that way, one, what is changing in March? One is the context. One is the context, which is the offline environment. Second is the process. Once again, the process in terms of what you do on a daily basis after the first 1 hour. We are spending 1 hour in the morning, but I don't have control over the next 10 hours. So this is exactly what is going to change in the next 4 weeks. Are we clear until this point? Can I get a confirmation? Are you clear? Are we clear? Okay, so now we discussed about the learning process. We discussed about the characteristics. The teacher characteristics again, I would say, very complex thing for me to explain entirely. Like what goes into building him. Like I think it's 15 years of work literally. So it'll take decent amount of time and a different level of cognition for it to understand. Let me quickly help you understand the student characteristics. What are we changing? What are we fixing very fast? So one, you're able to see the screen. Okay. So one, your entire problem ecosystem, you're not able to, stay peacefully, or you're not able to take the right decisions. Everything you talk about is rooted in this. All the problems, name it, it can be solved with this framework. This framework is worth anything, guys. I'm telling you, it's $1 million or probably much more higher value when we have to commercialize this at some point of time. Like I don't know if I want to do it, but that's the kind of framework which has solutions to almost all your broken emotions are hidden. Which I'm talking about will solve it. So when a student is coming here, we'll ensure this is removed. Any level of stress, any level of anxiety, any context of depression is removed surgically. This is our expertise. Now, the reason why most of you are clearing is because of this, not because of audit, FR, or law or any other paper which you think is a weak paper. These are the three things which are game changing for you. Anxiety also includes your fear of failure, your exam stress, exam stress, depression about your past kid, everything you're going through, a lot of unnecessary and useless emotions which you're processing just for the heck of it, just because you're idle, just because you're incapable, you're doing it, and don't attach that to sensibility, responsibility. Don't attach inefficiency to good characteristics. Inefficiency is different, and then the definition of emotion internally is very different from what you think. Just because you cry after you fail, it's not emotion. If you are emotional, you'll ensure you'll never fail. That's what is emotion. Not crying after failing, or thinking that your parents might feel burden, and then you get stuck in wrong decisions and bullshit decisions, trying to solve everything by yourself without deciding the right steps to solve this problem forever. So don't get stuck in emotional loops or layers. Please understand that. So this is something which is very important, whether we solve it or someone solves it. This is something which has to be solved. And again, as I said, we are correlating the research work with something scientific. When I say science as in medicine, like these are the medicines which most of the psychiatrists in India use, even abroad also. So we looked into each of these medicines, understood what would this do, what would this do once it entered the body, and we try to get that functionality and try to replicate it in a natural way, right? This is exactly what we did. I'll say super proud of the work. Like, so whatever investment is, if you can use this framework alone, it's worth whatever investing. That's how valuable it is, because it removes years of suffering, years and years of suffering without side effects, and most importantly, without medicines. This is exactly one thing which we do, which we convert from struggling student to super student. This is one thing which we focus. This is one. And there are multiple steps. I can go on and on. But then today, this is one extreme. The other extreme is this. Clear-cut, straightforward understanding of what needs to be completed. We are focusing on what needs to be completed in a clear-cut manner, where, okay, there is a paper called, let's say, first of the time, we're starting from tomorrow. So all those, I think, who are planning to come down, I think the discussion is done. Make sure you arrive by tomorrow. Okay? Maximum, if it's in a very different state, maximum by 5th. Ideally, today start wherever you are, come down, reach, and everything is sorted. You just have to get your clothes and books, nothing else. Book is like one book, maximum 2 books per subject. We're looking at it. All those. So tomorrow is where we're starting. So it's a 1 month marathon, right? Now, what is happening in this 1 month marathon? If you look at a paper called AFM, now AFM is not difficult or easy. It can't be difficult or easy. No subject can be difficult or easy. You're only talking about chapters. Always focus on the fundamental unit. Fundamental unit. Now, fundamental unit in syllabus is a chapter, right? So what is it? What is difficult? Let's say we look at it. There are 6 chapters which are giving you 40 marks. 6 chapters which are giving you 40 marks. Now, basic question: how much time would I need to complete the 6 chapters? Not more than 50 hours. What is 50 hours? 4 days. In 4 days, if you complete this 40 marks, you'll be able to score 25 marks. In 4 days, if you're able to complete it reasonably well. Now you might ask me, how can I complete 4 days? I need 4 days to complete 1 chapter alone. Again, for you, what is happening to students who are taking 4 attempts and still scoring 25? Even after 4 attempts, they score 25, 30 in AFM. If it's a consequence of time, if it's a question of time, the more time you put in, you should be able to keep increasing, right? If that is the rule, you can do everything in life. You can fool around and decide that I'll clear in the 5th attempt. That is the case. A lot of people will clear, right? But you understand, even if you write 5 attempts or 6 attempts, 7 attempts, there is no guarantee that you'll clear. There is no possibility or probability to clear, right? Clearly, time is not the factor. So, in your mind, first of all, detach quality and quantity in a certain extent. When I ask you to sit for certain amount of time, it's not directly about the learning process alone. It also has to do with the psychological aspect. If you study for 6 hours or 5 hours, you'll feel stressed. If you study for 10 to 12 hours, you'll feel less stressed, believing that your day has been productive. And a given day, when you sleep for an extra hour, when you're not able to study, when you fall sick, you'll actually feel more guilty. You don't feel happy that you got this. You feel more guilty. Am I right or wrong? Can someone confirm? Is it a yes or no? I'm saying the more you study, the less stress you feel. The more you study, the less stress you feel on that day. There you are, right? So that quantity is different. That is the different part. Here, when I talk about time, it's a learning process. What is happening? Okay, let's look at something like portfolio management. Portfolio management. Now, what actually happens in a portfolio management? You're trying to create an investment portfolio. Now, when you're trying to create an investment portfolio, you need to understand what are the various pockets of investment. When I say investment, let's define investment. X, Y, Z, whatever is there. These are all investments. Now, each investment, you break it into risk and return. What is the risk in this investment? And let's say I'll take a risk for this, and what is the return? Now let's look at quickly. I'm trying to help you understand the thoughts quickly. Now, if I talk about investments, can you type about 2-3 investments, 2-3 types of, let's say you want to invest 50 lakhs. Okay, you want to invest 50 lakhs. What are the various sources? Where can you invest? Type randomly and quickly. Where can you invest? I want all of you to type something. You have to invest 50 lakhs. What are the various areas where you can invest? Shares, good. Next. Mutual funds, real estate, yes. Now SIP, like what SIP will invest 50 lakhs? When I say SIP, you'll have to replicate it every month, right? 50 lakhs, is that how you do it? Okay. Bonds. Equity. Okay, fine. So let's focus on 2-3 things. One, you said stocks and shares. That I think stocks or shares or mutual funds, let's look at everything into the same bracket. Or if you meant stocks as a substitute, when you invest in that, what are the risk in stock market? Like what are the risk in stock market? Let's talk about stock market. What is the risk? Okay, let's think about 3 classes. One is stock market, gold, real estate. Okay, stock market, gold, house. Stock market, gold, house. So when you talk about portfolio management, we're talking about portfolio of investments. Now, when I talk about investments, again, in that chapter, it's different. I'm simplifying it. What are the types of investments? Let's look into the macro investments. One is stock market, one is gold, one is house. Now, stock market, 50 lakhs. Now, where can you invest? The first advantage in stock market is diversity. You can invest 1 lakh in 50 companies or 50,000 in 100 companies, right? The same thing, you cannot buy 100 houses. You cannot buy one room in 5 different homes, right? So diversity cannot happen in real estate generally. You'll only get access to one. So when you get access to one, you're not diversifying risk. Fundamentally, if you think about buying a house versus buying something in the stock market, your regular brain says stock market is risky. That's the regular perception. People think when you invest in house, it's not risky because you have your house. In stock market, it's risky. That's the blanket statement. But the underlying point is, how do you reduce risk in anything? By diversifying the risk. Now, when you diversify the risk, gold you cannot diversify. Whether you buy it from X, Y, Z, it's a diversified source of procurement. But gold as it's a unified rate. So you cannot diversify gold. You cannot diversify a home for 50 lakhs. You can only diversify stocks because you can invest in multiple companies. Now, when there is a possibility of diversification, risk is always lesser than something where there is no possibility of diversification. Making sense? Yes or no? This is one perspective. I'll add more. Is it making sense? Fundamental level, stock markets are risky. House is safe. It looks like that. But then when you look at the possibility of diversification, now this is one. The other way around, if you look at a house, you buy it, it is defined. Like what happens with the house? You invest 50 lakhs, probably you'll get in Hyderabad, you'll get a 500 SFT house which does not exist. 1 BHK won't exist in Hyderabad. 50 lakhs, most likely you'll get a Chotu Putti house at some random part. Normally, 2 crore is the base figure here. So you'll get something. Now, why is it not risky? The risk is about the principal risk. Please understand, when you're defining risk, when you talk about investment, there are 2 things. One is the principal risk. When I say principal risk, whatever you invest in a house, it stays. Whatever you invest in stock market, it may or may not stay. But as an investor, the real risk is the risk of not growing. I'm talking about the growth risk. You understand? Guys, are you getting it? So when you talk about risk, there are two things. One is at a fundamental investment risk. Now, what is investment risk? Investment level, you are investing into something. So the principal which you're investing, is it there or not? Stock market, the risk is higher there. But in house, it stays. It normally, it rarely drops down. It rarely, almost impossible for you to drop the prices per SFT. Now, house, it becomes whole depreciation that is there. But in general, it won't come down. But share, there is a possibility of the principal risk. But the growth risk, shares always grow, house depreciates, share appreciates most of the time. So stock market has both as well. If we talk about it specifically, it has both. All at future also it can depreciate. But in terms of risk perception, this is exactly how you break it down. So when you're approaching a chapter like portfolio management, you understand it for a different context. And most of the formula are all about identifying the risk. You're trying to find a balance between risk and return. Risk is proportional to return. This is a basic rule. You're trying to find an exception where there is reasonable risk but higher return. Isn't it the game? As a portfolio manager, as a fund manager, isn't it your responsibility? Fundamentally, you have to think in a way where risk is optimized, return is maximized. Now, all the formulas will always talk about it. Now, you have this finite perspective in mind. You go and approach, you open that, look at any formula, bring it down in this bracket. Like how in this class of investments, how do I optimize the risk and how do I maximize the return? If you look at it, you hardly would need 6 to 7 hours to complete the chapter. 6 to 7 hours is great because 2-3 hours you'll get a perspective. Next 4 hours directly practice. You practice 20 problems in 4 hours. Look at 10 problems and practice 10 problems. Your portfolio management is reasonably done. Yes or no? Can this approach work? Yes or no? Yes or no? Can this approach work? Can I get some responses? If you slightly break it, if you slightly put in that extra thought, if you slightly add one layer of thinking before you blindly go and approach this. This is exactly what we are talking about, right? So we discussed about the conversion from a struggling student to a super student. Now, what is the first thing I said? We're outrightly changing all of this. We're removing this with surgical intervention. 1. 2. The approach. It's completely focused on the exam. We spoke about how do we pass in 2 hours. For you to pass in 2 hours, you have to revise fixed amount of time. For you to revise, you have to complete the syllabus. Before completing the syllabus, you're trying to follow an approach. What is the approach in terms of syllabus completion? So this is the approach. We first of all understand these are the chapters. When I say, see, even these 3 chapters will give you 30 marks. The 6 chapters will give you 40 marks. In that case, this has highest weightage. My point being, the reason why we gave it higher weightage or higher priority, not weightage, priority is these 4 chapters can be done in 6 chapters can be done in 4 days, but these 3 chapters may or may not be done in 4 days for most of the cases, for most of the students, not for all of you. Now we look at what is working as a median or what, like, because there are exceptions for every student. Now that's where bringing the customization part, but in general, it makes sense for you to complete the 6 chapters because you're diversifying the risk. Let's say, what if you don't understand this chapter? You understand a part of it. And then the question comes. You can't answer that question, but you can answer the chapter in general. This is one part. The other way around, we always want to focus on one big chapter. One big chapter, which comes as a chunk that is there. And then we diversify risk. Okay, 5 marks will come from startup finance. Even if you read it here and there, let this gap 2.5 marks, sorted. Now 12 marks will come from forex. Now for you to get 3 marks, 4 marks, you need to have a better and bigger context of the entire problem, something like consolidation. It's easy to grab few marks from one of the standards on assets instead of trying to get the same from consolidation because it's complicated and it involves other aspects. So that is exactly how we think through multiple dimensions before we decide what is more important or what is relatively of higher priority. So this is how we are going to complete it. Now, last thing, we'll conclude in 5 minutes in terms of the actual conclusion, conclusion. Now, this is exactly how the process works. Now, this is what I'm sharing. Like one of the students, Mitra, has been working on this, and the outcome has come very well. Let's say one of your, let's say, for example, if Anshu is coming on 4th. Like probably she'll be reaching it tomorrow. And yesterday we looked at it takes 147 hours for her to complete auditing. According to her, it might be even more. Now we are planning to help her complete in, let's say, less than 100 hours. Now, how are we doing it? One, technically, overview. This overview of entire 19 chapters will be given to her, and it will be internalized. Like to give this, it takes 1 second, right? I share a link, everyone gets it. This is not what I'm talking about. Internalization. So she'll be able to remember all the 19 chapters in terms of module 1, module 2, module 3. And what does each chapter focus? We create a macro bird's eye view in the brain, not in the chart. Charts are cheap. You pay 200, you'll get chart. What will you do with it? You have to build it in the brain. This is costly. It's 100 times costly for you to buying a book, buying any book, guys. Like whatever book you want to buy, any book you buy, it's 300, 400. To learn this, it costs you lakhs. Like Psychology of Money is a popular book. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a popular book. Thinking Fast and Slow is a popular book. You buy all these 3 things together, it will cost you less than 1,000. For you to understand the essence of this, it runs into crores. Because once you understand the game of money, you can earn anything, literally anything. I know a lot of people are earning 10 crores per month. 10 crores per month, I'm talking about $1 million per month. First generation people, I'm talking about chartered accountants. Now, because they think in a particular way, they operate in a particular way. There are different breed and class of humans. Now, why? They built it over a period of time. They built that game. Each of them took at least 10 years, right? So that is there. Now, here the idea is not about having one more piece of material. Or, no, that is not going to happen. You have to internalize it. Okay. So when you try to internalize it, you can't fit the whole 3 textbooks into someone's brain. You can't do that. It has to be incremental. It has to be in a particular process. So first day 1 itself, she'll be able to internalize all of this. What is the entire overview? This should take 3 hours. And internalization of module 1, again, not memorization. I'm talking about internalization. So she gets an overview of this, module 1, module 2, module 3. 3 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours. So total 12 hours. 12 hours, I'm challenging you. The kind of insights somebody would get in the first 12 hours by going through this framework, it will take more than 12 days to get anything closer than this. Now, you might ask me, am I not exaggerating? What is 12 hours? Like, why is it so special? Simple. When certain people talk in a particular way, you get it. You haven't let's talk about waking up early. Isn't your real mom, real dad, not the magic of morning's mom? I think they have been talking about this since ages past. Everybody talks about 5 a.m., 5 a.m. club, 4 a.m. club, Brahma Muhurta. Haven't you thought about it at least 1,000 times in like where I want to wake? Like you think through this. Thinking about it, talking about it, then actually doing it is very different. Now thinking about, there are a lot of thumbnails on YouTube auditing in, I don't know, 30 hours, 40 hours, whatever bullshit it is. It's very different from saying something and actually doing it. So that is the reason why for someone to get the clarity of what somebody gets it, it's at least 12 days, right? We're trying to bring 2 weeks into 1 day. That's what is the beauty of a quotation, right? Whatever takes a book, a single quote will explain more than a book, right? That is exactly why quotes are powerful. Work is worship. You don't have to talk about 2 hours about work. Work is worship. Fabulous, deep, profound. Work is worship. So this is exactly how day 1 is sorted. Now, once this is reasonably clear, jumping to module 1, you have these 6 chapters in module 1. Again, 2 hours per chapter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and reporting is fine. So 6, 7 chapters when you look at it, 2 hours per chapter roughly. So 1 day, module 1 is done. Again, when I say module 1 is done, it's not like 100%. It's not like she doesn't have to go back. So day 1, overview. Day 2, module 1. Day 3, module 2. Day 4, module 4. Module 3. Day 5, revision plus writing. 5th day, like a 5-day boot camp. And day 5, she'll be writing an exam. And I'm sure she'll cross 20 to 25 without even touch. Now, there is no coaching, there is no video, nothing. Even if you're talking about auditing for the very first time, 5 days she'll get there. Now, this is fast. This is going to be super fast. From this 5th day to 6th, 10th day, it's going to be incremental. Then we'll focus on 1 day we looked at the entire subject. 1 day we looked at 1 module. From day 5, day 6, we'll look at 1 or 2 chapters per day. where she kind of builds those things incrementally. So in terms of auditing, let's say all of this. Okay, this is her schedule, 147 hours. Now from there, if you look at it, these 3 chapters in a particular day, these 3 chapters. So day 7, 40 marks is deeply done. By day 7 or day 8, even if I give one entire day for professional ethics, 40 marks is deeply done by day 7, day 8, one more exam on day 9. So within 10 days, at least she'll write 3 exams and 40 marks is done, and this can also be done. 50 marks is properly done, and the overall thing is properly done. 40 is sorted here. 40 is sorted. Now, once this is done, the risk of failure in auditing, as I said, we started the session in terms of inverse thinking, right? Now, what is inverse thinking? If I complete the syllabus, if I revise, if I write, I'll pass. No. What should be avoided? What should be avoided in order not to fail in audit is what I'm thinking. First, what should be avoided? Ideally, a wrong and random learning path. What should be avoided? A random learning path, assuming by opening a book and studying that in slow motion forever, that will clear. That is some path we should avoid. Okay, so a wrong source of learning, a wrong source of learning. 2, wrong process of learning. What is wrong process of learning? Thinking that spending 10 hours in a chapter will do well. No, that's the wrong path. Source, process, and most importantly, approach. Source, process, approach. We're avoiding all of the things. So that way, you're not making mistakes, which 85% of the students do. We're avoiding that completely. And in this process, we'll discover the right one. Making sense? Making sense in terms of the approach. I'll share this. I'll talk about it practically. Or probably she herself will talk about it once this is done. Is it making sense, guys? Is it making sense? I'm sharing everything in terms of how things would work. Is it making sense? Yes or no? Can I get some responses? Now, at the beginning of 21-day challenge, I told you one thing. I'll increase your ability of focusing on something, which is a deep, for almost 60 minutes, right? Now, we spend more than 60 minutes today in a seamless manner. I've been talking about listening. We do not do anything. Talking, listening, talking, listening, talking, listening. You're in a zone. Now, for all our super students, I increase the zone to 3 hours. When I say 3 hours, you watch a movie 3 hours seamlessly. You won't feel exhausted after watching a movie, right? Similarly, I'm building the ability for my students. Even if you're listening to something as basic as paleontology, it could be like study of dinosaurs. If it's a lecture on 3 hours, still you shouldn't feel anything. You should be able to, observe it. I know I'm reasonably interesting, so I'm talking about something which is boring as well, where you can observe things for 3 hours. This is capacity building. When you can observe 3 hours without diluting, you can learn everything, right? So this is how it is going to be. Now, before we conclude, we discussed a lot of things. Again, the level of attention you would have paid on this, the level of attention which you would have paid on this would directly impact how much you would have gathered. That is there. And before I conclude, since Mitra has done a fabulous job, let's understand from her in terms of how difficult or how did this happen, and what is her experience of completing it. Now she completed it. I asked her not to learn or memorize or remember. She just had to look into the module and build it. Now she did not get a cumulative revision day yet, but let's look at it raw right now. I think she just finished it yesterday night. Mitra, you're there, you can unmute yourself.
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Explain what happened in this process. Like when you're asked to do this, share your complete experience of building the overview from the whole thing.
It is very easy to elaborate anything. When you are given a topic, it's very easy to elaborate, but concising it is very, very difficult. So that's where I was stuck. Like when sir said just give chapter overview, like for 2 marks, write it. I don't know what points to write, what to reduce, where to focus on. So that's where I started thinking, okay, so you have to look in a very different way. When you read the title itself, you need to know what you are going to read inside the chapter, what is expected of you. And so that's how I went towards the chapter overview. I then, this was the basis. From this, I extrapolated for the modules, like the detail one was the module one for each chapter. So I developed the index mapping. In index mapping, they give the headings, right? Like each chapter has 9 to 10 headings. So based on that, in each subheading, I started developing the points. And certain points have even further split into detailed versions. So that's how I built it. It was more of a pyramid, like.
Fair. So this particular part which you spoke about, concising is hard. Now that's a profound insight because people can write any number of words and sentences about when a question is asked. When somebody is asked to explain that in two sentences at 2 marks is the hardest. Writing a 1 mark question at 2 mark question is the hardest for anyone because you have to be very specific and precise. Yes. So that is about overview. And what is your experience after completing overview? When you completed this, when you had to look at this, how did it feel?
I got new understanding of audit actually. I had a very different view. I think I was very, I don't know. I got a 360-degree view. That's what it was. More of understanding based and not like just static thinking. That thing was good.
Perfect. So overview, now you understood. One is how do you concise, your ability to concise is an important ability in the exam. That's what you learned. Second, she has mentioned 360-degree overview. So this is the concept. Now, when we look at our trademarks, we have something called super student, study less, learn more. This is what I'm talking about. Less content, more understanding. Less content, more understanding, less memory, less by hearting, less bullshit. Like this is exactly what it is. Now, this gives you more control and this gives you more clarity than 3 to 4 books together. One. Now, Mitra, when we have to go to the next step, okay, that is overview. Now, it's a step up, right? Now, in this process, for the word called quality control, you used what? 40 words, 50 words. Now, when I ask you to elongate it, the same quality control in a slightly extended way, how did you decide the scope and what's the approach where you have to elaborate one box into just one frame, one whole page?
The basis was my index mapping.
Yes.
So based on those keywords, I just elaborated on that. And also the test your knowledge questions were there. So at the end of the day, we need to know what the institute wants from you and from that chapter, right? So based on those two, I fixed the content which will be needed, and that's how I.
So after doing this, after doing the whole chapter, Mitra, do you think you can is it applicable to go and write an exam? Like, do you think it can be directly used? Do you think you can score well because of this?
Yeah, I think so. When you do multiple revisions of just this sheet, you can easily score a minimum of 50 at least because it is that detailed actually.
Perfect. So the idea is we just revise this multiple times, right? Whatever is there here, we'll kind of consolidate together. So it's a substitute to your textbook right now.
Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Mita. Thanks for your insight. Now, guys, understand this very clearly. Number one, there's a saying like the more you bleed in war, the more you bleed in practice, the more you sweat in practice, the less you bleed in war. This is what it is. Now, on a given day, when you open the book, if you operate with your own comfort zone with the same bullshit mentality with which you failed since the last 2-3 attempts, the same bullshit result will happen. Get out of it at some point of time. Understand what it takes to change. Understand what it takes to change for once. You have a wavelength of thinking. This is bullshit thinking which happens on YouTube. I'm taking you to the highest order of thinking. You bloody understand it and change. If you don't flip it, it takes forever you to change because what is happening is You're lifting it, you're collapsing, lifting it, collapsing. Now, how does it gets reflected? For half of you, you're not able to start the session at a particular time. Half of you are not able to submit your PDR before 10, like 5:10. If this nitty-gritty small things are not being done, there is no way on earth that you will go ahead and get everything right in those 18 hours or 15 hours or 12 hours or whatever is applicable to you. There, we should work like clockwork. Every single minute has to be converted into a mark. Now, if you do not demonstrate this already X number of times, there is no practical way of doing it. So either, see, it's simple. You should have a realistic understanding of your existing thought process. Realistic, not motivational or pessimistic or optimistic. Realistic. Either you know that you know for sure, or you know that you don't know, and trust someone who knows. Otherwise, if you mix it, if you try to mix and match things here and there, and you kind of bring a lot of things together, the whole thing collapses. Because multiple times, for example, index mapping. When I say index mapping is ICA index. It's goddamn ICA index, because we always talk about completing the textbook. I want every CA student to go through the ICA material. The reason being, ICA takes a lot of effort. The entire board of studies has a separate wing which focus on academics. ICA is the one who's setting question papers. Now, when it is preparing material, why are you not leveraging on that access from where the question paper is built? Question paper is not built on some random YouTube concise notes, right? So, since I cannot completely convince people who are sitting in a different city to go through ICA material, I'm at least asking them to go through it at least once. Now, if you come back and say, I'll do index mapping of my faculty material, fantastic. Now, for me, I cannot respond to a level of stupidity which is beyond the normal acceptable level. Now, the whole understand why we are doing what we are doing. Now, why am I talking this language? Because I don't want to come back and offer sympathy on the day of the results. Now, day of the results, I don't care. Everything has been said clearly X amount of times. You pass or fail, I'm already able to see results for most of it. It's clear. Now, there are two things. Those who are going to pass, if they do some nonsense, that will become fail. Those who are going to fail, unless you change that trajectory significantly, it's going to be fail. It doesn't matter what you believe, it doesn't matter what you think. Please understand this. I have this ability of being objective. So we understand what you feel is, let's say, 2 weeks back, 3 weeks back, weren't you feeling that you're going to fail? 4 weeks back, weren't you feeling differently? Now you feel differently, isn't it? When you trust, now what does it mean? What you feel is not right. It changes. So just because today you feel more confident, do you think it is true? When I'm saying if you're not confident, it's not true. When you're confident, it also may not be true. So don't bank everything on feelings. Focus on systems and processes. And remember this golden line, it is not done until it is done. It is not done until it is done. Perception of it getting done is different from it actually being done. This is the difference between a graduation exam and an exam like ICI, where we're talking about 90% pass percentage versus 90% fail percentage. Get this. Don't be lethargic. Let's get sort your shit and get things in a very aligned manner. This is exactly what we are going to do for this month. Okay. So to begin with, Vamsi and Hari will conclude decisions today. So whatever you're studying, I think yesterday got your books. So study the top 2-3 chapters and complete at least 20 marks today. Try to complete 20 marks today, both Vamsi and Hari. The same with Kushal and Mani. Continue with your respective topics. Keep proceeding with that. So we'll have one more conversation tomorrow at some point of time. Mitra, I'll be meeting you in probably 90 minutes. Before that, revise everything. Revise whatever you saw, and then we'll take the next decision. I think Dikshita, you have completed the 3 chapters. Move on to the next 3 chapters in the same ICA material. This is what I want you to do. Anshu, Prasad, make sure you start packing your things, and whoever has decided, I think Srinath is handling this. Make sure he is today or tomorrow. This is all sorted. So I think Harsha was not there yesterday. I think, okay, I'll have to have a conversation with Harsha. And who else? Akarsha is here. Vamsi, I think Vamsi can go and study. Let me do the elimination part. Vamsi, go and study. You can leave the session, go and study. Radha, you can go and study. Mitra, Dikshita, you can continue with your assignments. Go ahead. Mani, continue your FM or audit. Yeah, Mani, you can continue your audit. Watch a lecture if that is required, as we discussed yesterday. Mani, you can study. Hari, you can study. Prasad, you can go and study. Prasad, go and study. Already. Akash, you can also get started. Like we'll revert to you because I need to know the context of your preparation so far. I believe you just underwent a surgery. So Akash, you can also leave the session right now. We'll have a separate conversation with you. Kavya, you can also get going. We'll have a separate conversation with you. Sure. No. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Now I think we need to figure out and finalize decisions here. Okay. So guys, get started with your current day. Keep studying. We'll come back to each of you in probably 5 to 7 minutes. Today it's just a concluding call. I'll start with Prasanna, Alvin, Harsha, Anurag, Pendil. 5 of you, right? I'm starting with Prasanna. I'll come to you. Meanwhile, just keep studying. I'm opening a breakout room.